Hello everyone, and welcome back to the second part of my little exploration of local hauntings in my area. Today we've come back to Great Abington, or Little Abington. I'm not entirely sure where the border is in between both villages. But today we're exploring a story of a highwayman named Jeremiah Lagdon. I was never really too aware of how much this man's legacy has been ingrained into the village. You can actually see on the bridge that crosses over the river, there's actually a little depiction of Jeremiah Lagdon riding horseback, which is sort of the village sign to an extent. There's also a number of houses and a number of roads that have links to either Jeremiah or Lagdon. So he really is a big part in this little area here. Now there is a story that outside of Abington Lodge there was an area next to the road that was known as Lagdon's grave. However, I can't seem to see where this particular place is, whether it was ever there at all or whether it was just a little legend. But it's said that that's where Jeremiah Lagdon was buried, although some of the records I've read have said that it was in fact Geoffrey Lagdon. So whether it's the same person or not is unknown. However, it is known that Jeremiah Lagdon was indeed a real person. He was an 18th century landowner that lived in the village. He also owned the White Hart pub, and he had a reputation for being a highwayman. Now later on in his life, Jeremiah lived in a building called the Old House, which still stands here today, and it was there where a lot of his highwayman activities took place. There's a place in the garden apparently where he hid a lot of his stolen loot. There's also a place in the garden as well that's called Jeremiah's grave. However, the main consensus is if it is indeed a grave, it's probably that of his wife's and not his. As for ghosts surrounding this rather interesting character, and rather infamous character for the area, is that he was executed by hanging in the fields opposite his house. Now where those fields are, I'm not entirely sure. Obviously the area's been built up a lot over the years, so whether those fields still exist as they would have done is not known. However, it's said that his ghost has been seen haunting the woods around there. It would seem that after all these criminal deeds in life, he is still not at rest. And we're going to go and take a look at another area in Abington, which is about a mile out the way, and I'll join you there. So I've just arrived at the second place in Abington, and I am absolutely gutted that I'm not going to be able to get to the place itself. There's actually, I didn't realise it was private land, which is not the first time it's happened on my little explore of local hauntings, unfortunately, so sorry about that. It's annoying because it was quite an interesting one actually. The legend is called the Sunken Church Field, and it's said that there used to be a church that actually stood on this little bit of land that was demolished many hundreds of years ago. However, it's said that if you were to put your ear to the ground on a moonlit night, you can actually hear the bells of the church ringing from beneath the ground. Now it's obviously a very typical kind of spooky ghost story, but I really like that little legend. I think that's quite interesting. But the actual location of where this was supposed to be is somewhat of a mystery, because it's called Sunken Church Field, but there's no official place called Sunken Church Field. So I did a little bit of searching on the maps. I actually contacted a friend of mine who lives in Abington, and he's very interested with archaeology. He's a very intelligent guy. He did a little bit of digging, and he found an area that he suspects is where this Sunken Church Field actually is. And the reason he says that is because it seems undisturbed by ploughing, by any crop harvesting, farming. And it's just an odd little bit of land that just seems very detached from the rest of the area around it. So he suspects that may be where it is. He also said there appears to be a little bit of a bank either side, which would give it the name of Sunken Church Field. Now the origin of the story probably comes from the fact that there was a lot of Roman pottery found in the area. There is a legend that it may have been, well, I say a legend, there is speculation that there was a Roman villa there. There was a villa in the area, but it was a few miles further towards sort of Bartlow, another village nearby. So there was no actual Roman villa there. However, there were definitely artifacts found, bits of pottery, Roman coins, and it could be that this story of a Roman villa sprung up from this. And obviously if they even found bits of brickwork or something like that, people in history may not have linked that to the Romans and thought that this you know, these bits of brickwork and findings were relics from a church, or the parts of building work from churches. So it could be where this legend stemmed from. I'll say I'm really annoyed that I can't actually get up there to show you, because I thought it'd be, I mean, I wasn't really expecting to hear the sound of bells from beneath the ground, but I thought it'd be an interesting place to just, you know, just take you guys and show you. But yeah, it is unfortunately private land up there, and you know, with the current climate, I'm not going to pester them. Can I walk on your field please to listen to the bells, you know? So yeah, I've done the best I can here. I've told you the story. It's a shame I can't get up there to actually see it for myself. So I'm just going to get back in the car now. We'll head on over to the next place, which is somewhere I've been before. It's in the village of Hadstock. We filmed an episode there back in 2014, I think it was. It was one of the first episodes I did with James and Sophie. So yeah, join me when we're over there, and there's two little stories from the churchyard there that I'll be sharing with you. So I've just arrived at Hadstock Church, and as I mentioned, I did investigate here with the group back in 2014. However, we didn't experience anything at all. The reason I chose to investigate here was because I remember reading a report online from another group who said that they had picked up on some activity here. From what I remember, I think they were more sort of a group of psychic investigators rather than using equipment or anything such as that. But seeing as I thought it's local and there's enough reason to come here, we decided to investigate. But like I say, we didn't experience anything at all. Only thing that really stood out to me was when we came and filmed the introduction during the day. I remember Sophie was standing probably about here somewhere. I remember she said that she got the feeling there was someone standing over here by the church, basically keeping an eye out over the churchyard, sort of almost as a protector, sort of, not a protector as such, but almost like, you know, just looking after the place, making sure no one's causing any trouble. And that's the only thing that I remember standing out from that. However, since then, whilst researching for this video, I discovered that on the paranormal database, again, as I mentioned in the last video, I do use that quite a lot. There's a lot of quite unusual hauntings reported on there, more obscure sort of things. But I remember reading on there when I was researching for the video that there's a report of a haunting here from, and all it says as a description is, a pleasant old man is said to haunt the churchyard. Who he is unknown. When he was sighted, whether it's a regular occurrence, whether it was a one-off sighting, who knows, but a pleasant old man, which to an extent could potentially fit in with what Sophie got the impression of feeling while she was here, that this guy, or this gentleman, is sort of just keeping an eye out for the church. Maybe he used to be a caretaker here, maybe he was an old vicar or priest. He could just have been, you know, the spirit of someone who's buried here or used to worship at the church. But either way, that is the most prominent haunting here, so it might be worth coming back at some point and investigating the churchyard again. Now, I've said it before, and you know, I do wholeheartedly believe it. I think churches and churchyards, generally speaking, have a lot of hauntings and a lot of goings on in terms of supernatural events. Reason I believe this is, one, because they're so old, especially in the UK. We're looking at churches that go back 1,000 years, sometimes 900 to 1,000 years, and a lot of them are built on sites that go back even further than that. So I think just the extent of the history of these places, not to mention the importance of the buildings and the sites themselves. These were places obviously that people came to worship. They're very spiritual places in terms of people putting all their faith and all their belief into an environment. The amount of just significance these buildings had, and not so much now in the last 50 years, it's sort of died away a bit, but going back in time, churches were essentially the most important place in villages and towns. And you know, I think just because of this importance and significance of these buildings as to why they are so haunted. Now, the second thing I wanted to mention from Hadstock, and it sort of goes more into folklore and local traditions, but there's a well north west of the churchyard, which I believe is over here. Now, going back in time, this was the only source of drinking water for the village, so it's obviously very important. However, it gained a reputation for having healing powers, and I know this isn't the first time I've heard of wells that have got supposedly supernatural properties. I think it must be down here. Now, on top of these supposed healing properties of the well, there's a story that if young girls would drop a ring into the well, their dreams would be that of the man they'd marry. So essentially in their dreams they'd see the man that they would marry in the future. Again, I'm not sure I've heard that particular story in the past elsewhere, but that was a tradition that's gone back a long way here. I very much doubt it still goes on today, but yeah, it's interesting nonetheless. But as for sort of having healing properties, I'd imagine as well, because it's so close to the church, there must be some kind of a link there with the fact that, you know, it's supposed to have these supernatural powers and it's linked to a church and it's holy. I wonder if that's maybe, well, why some of these wells do have this reputation of having healing properties. But yeah, that's the well just down there. And there we are. That's about all I've got to say in Hadstock. There's not any other legends or ghost stories here that I'm aware of, just these two surrounding the church and the churchyard. I'll say our investigation here is very, very quiet. Maybe there is, you know, not an awful lot going on here. Maybe it's more folklore as to where these two stories come from, but I think it might be worth coming back here at some point and doing another investigation here, maybe on my own, maybe with the team. So I've got one more place to share with you today, which is literally just outside of Haverhill, so not far from where I live at all. Brand new place, I've never been there before. Again, it might be a place that I come back to investigate if I sort of feel there's any kind of, you know, feeling of it being haunted while I'm there. So I'm quite excited to go and have a look at this one. So I've just arrived at the final location for the day, and I know that on my videos I quite often mention the weather, but it's English, it's what I do. But it's actually turned out to be a rather nice afternoon. The clouds have cleared, we've got blue sky, and I'm actually going over to a place now in Castle Camps that's known as Wigmore Pond. So I'm just coming up to it now. As you can see in there, it's the area known as Wigmore Pond. I'll find a route in. It's quite literally just a little wooded area in the middle of some fields. It's nothing particularly spectacular to look at. It's not actually named on any maps. I actually had to go and look at an old map to find out what the actual location of it was. Now, the actual ghost story attached to this place is very, very minor. And in fact, I don't know where it's come from, what the significance of it is, but it's said that there is an unnamed soul buried here, and presumably they now haunt this little area. Now, despite the fact it's called Wigmore Pond, it's not actually a pond at all. There may have been some water in here at some point in history. Obviously, since modern farming, the fields are a lot better drained now, so it's possible that, you know, this did fill up with water at some point in the past. But there's no water here now. Like I say, it obviously hasn't been for some time because of these trees, although they are planted in rather straight lines. So I do wonder if these have been hand planted, or they've just been, you know, maybe the area's been cleared at some point and they've left trees in lines. But it does look a little bit, you know, had a human touch to the layout of this little area. But yeah, it's, like I say, it's not a pond. The idea is that this was actually some sort of fortification for the castle at Castle Camps, which I believe was out that way, the actual castle itself. But there's no hard documents. Obviously, it was such a long time ago. We're going back about 1,000 years into the past. So there's very little documentation. It's mere speculation that somewhere like this, with banks at the side, and being this close proximity to the castle, it's just assumed that there was some kind of a link there. As you can see, climbing up the bank now, there's not actually much of a bank, to be honest. That's about the extent of the bank, and you can see if it was a pond at any point, it wouldn't have been very deep. My guess is probably more of a marshy area, but who knows. I did bring along an EMF detector. A lot of places we've been where there's been supernatural events occurring, we've found there is a link with magnetic fields or electric fields. So I thought I'd give this a little go. There's a power, not power station, a great big telephone wire over where I parked, so this might pick that up, but I'd have thought it's far enough away for it not to have an effect on it. So as you can see, we're not getting any spikes on it. Detecting magnetic fields at the moment. Maybe if we switch it to electric fields. Again, because it's such a, the story here is so minor, I wasn't actually expecting anything to happen, to get any readings or anything weird to happen here. It's just one of those things, sometimes I do like to bring a little bit of equipment out if I go somewhere where there's a ghost story attached to, just to see if you can, pick up on anything with a piece of equipment that, that's then maybe worth investigating in future. But it's actually a very, very small area. I thought it'd be bigger. I certainly thought it'd be more impressive. But then again, like I say, it's such an unknown little tale. But it does beg the question, is how many ghost stories and how many legends have really sprung up from absolutely nothing? There's obviously a story attached to this place. Where has that come from? And the origins have obviously been lost to time. Maybe there was someone buried here at some point, for whatever reason. Maybe it was a criminal burial or something along those lines. Who knows? Maybe the ghost story has literally come from somebody making the legend up themselves, and it's just been passed down in history throughout the years. And it's fascinating that how many of these stories do originate from literally nothing. Of course, it's in a very flat countryside. It is an odd little place to have this raised mound, so again, it could be the story originated from there, that it's just an odd little place. But there doesn't seem to be an awful lot going on here. Now, the last few videos I've done have been slightly different to normal. They've not been in the documentary format, they've been more in a vlog format, such as this video here. What do you guys think? Do you think I should carry on doing those? Are you enjoying them? Obviously I'm going to carry on with documentary. We've got a few more coming out very soon. We've got a documentary on Wick and Fen, Botsford Gibbet, and a few others. So we will be going back to doing documentaries, and we're filming the new series now as well. But yeah, what do you guys think? Do you think I should continue with this more vlog style videos, or do you think I should drop them? I enjoy making them, but if just wanted to get a little bit of feedback on them, that's all. I also hope the audio's improved on this video. The last few have been a little bit hit and miss. I've been trying out new microphones, new ways of filming, so a little bit of teething troubles there, but I hope I'll fix the audio a bit in this one. I won't know till I get home, obviously. But yeah. Now for the absolute delight of crossing this puddle here. Obviously you see water does collect. Oh God. Gordon Bennett. There we are. Obviously it does, there is an issue with flooding in this area here, so it's possible that the Wigmore Pond had a similar issue at some point in history. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. I'm going to go and have a cup of tea and maybe a biscuit, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care.